forms. So what I prepared here and pulled up are listing forms for listings in New Jersey. So Garden State has a couple of different forms from New Jersey MLS. So we're going to go through both of those MLSs. But then there are also the state forms that are used by both MLSs and required. We have Lori here from compliance and Ken, welcome Ken, so that they know what we need as far as compliance goes. All right, so we're going to look first at the actual listing. Actually not. We're going to go to the consumer information form. The consumer information form is just like our agency form in New York. This is a state form. This has to be, used when you have a buyer at first subsequent contact and so on. So this form, as we know, talks about our agency, why is this not going? Whether we're a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, a disclosed dual agent, a transaction broker. You all know that in New Jersey, they have transaction brokers, and a transaction broker is just an agent that will list the property, put it in MLS, and then takes a step back. The seller does everything. The seller holds their own open house. The seller will negotiate their own deal and send everything off to the attorneys thereafter. So really, all you're doing is putting a listing on. We don't really, I don't think have anybody here doing that, but it is possible in New Jersey.
Are you free to choose that?
If a seller asks you, I mean, but they're going to pay you a nominal fee for that. It's like $500 or whatever you determine, but it's not very much money. You're just throwing it on the MLS for them. I don't see very many of them these days. What you guys do need to know here is that you must disclose that you could be a disclosed dual agent, just like in New York. If you hold an open house, if you have buyers coming through, you have the potential to be a dual agent. So you must disclose that if you advertise, if you have buyers calling you directly, you could be a dual agent. There's potential for that. So you have to have the appropriate form signed. So this is the initial form. It talks about, I can't see, I have to make this bigger because I can't see. So the bottom of the form here, you would just acknowledging that you received the statement. The name of the brokerage goes here. So it would be Keller Williams. These could probably be pre-filled.
They auto-populate.
They go to populate in? Okay. So Keller Williams Hudson Valley Realty would go here. It's for seller landlord, so they use the same form for both.
No, the tenant, the rental forms don't. They don't fill automatically. But the buyer and seller information, if it's in the details, we'll pull it to the form.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the rentals.
But I'm just saying it's the same form for both.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like a landlord. Excuse me. You'll have to put that. You actually in this form, if it says the same, if you put your landlord's name as your seller, it should pull in, but the rental forms don't always work. So when you're dealing with rentals, it's
Okay. So we
type away.
okie dokie. All righty. So the landlord seller, in this case, it's seller. We're going to stick with seller. The seller's name would go here, their signature and the date. So we're not talking about how this fills in with DocuSign. We're just talking about what needs to be filled in at this point, and not so much how DocuSign works. The buyer tenant, buyer, once you get they sign it as well, but not in this case. Right now, you're dealing with the seller, you're on a listing appointment, so we're just interested in the seller. You're going to check one of these boxes, so you could be strictly a seller's agent. There's the option for a transaction broker. But this is what you should be checking all the time: seller's agent and disclosed dual agent if the opportunity arises.
And then Karen, did you say you would have the buyer sign that form whether you were a dual agent or not? Does the buyer sign that form?
Usually
It's more like New York when
if it's a dual, I mean, we could do that, yeah.
How
So
do you might arise, so you have.
No, she's saying if you have your own buyer and you end up in dual agency, the buyer has to sign a dual agency form. So we're saying it should be the same form. The seller signed it, the same form that the seller has already signed. This way everybody's aware that
Not one of the same, the same.
the same form with the seller's signature on it. Okay? I'm gonna save and close this. So the other half to this form, and they're not together because these are state forms and we cannot combine them, is the dual agency form, which is, and I'll pull this in, withdraw form consent. Oh, this is it. So in New York, we combine these two forms together. In New Jersey, they're two separate forms. So you have to remember to grab both of them. At the top, so this is informed consent to dual agency for a seller only. So you're going to put the property address at the top. It gives them more of an explanation of what a disclosed dual agent is. I made a, so look, this filled in for me here, but it's in the other one. Interesting. Anyway, so I just made an opportunity for myself. So it did pre-fill in my name. It filled in the company name here and the brokerage, the address of the brokerage. So the seller would sign and you as the agent would sign here as well. Do you guys have any questions on agency?
Karen, it's Carol. I just have one question, and I know this form says seller and we're doing, listing forms. Do we have to do this form if we have a buyer? Are we doing the same?
You should, because
Okay.
if it's a listing in our, within our company, just remember, you could be as a buyer's agent in dual agency if you're showing a listing of our company,
Got it. Okay.
okay? If it's another Keller Williams, which is not related to us, we have our 4 offices, but if it's Valley Realty in New Jersey, they're not related to us, so you would not be in dual agency if you showed a property of theirs.
Okay. Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's the agency form. Another universal form is the lead paint form. We'll do the easy stuff first. If lead paint is easy. Is lead paint easy, Lori?
It depends on which side of the transaction you sit on.
You're
Okay.
getting them.
So the lead paint form for New Jersey is pretty much the same as our form. You're going to be filling in the property address. It has the same information and bullet points here because these are federal forms. So it would be the same. It's initialing. So Lori, here, we're initialing here as well, or we're just checking off, initialing and checking?
Yeah, it should be set up that way. The line's there to initial it, so.
Yes, so the seller's initial should go here and they should be checking either it's not A or B, but this box bullet point or this one saying that they have knowledge of lead paint or they do not have knowledge of lead paint.
It says initial, right after seller's disclosure, it says initial, so they will set it up.
There you go, right, so it says initial right here. It's really hard for me to see. I need new glasses. And B is if the seller has reports or if the seller does not have reports. There is the lead paint disclosure or the pamphlet that has to go out to, the seller should get this as well, no?
Yeah, because the next line says that you've informed the seller of their responsibility, so I think the best way to do that is to give them the lead paint.
I don't know if that's in the packet, the envelope or the seller's.
Okay.
So we may have to add that. I'll check before we're done. Okay, and then if there's any change in the above information prior to the seller accepting an offer from the purchaser to purchase, seller will disclose all changes to the purchaser prior to accepting the offer. That's a little bit different. We don't have that in our form. So if the seller does happen.
That one line.
This letter C, it says, if there is any change in the above information prior to the seller accepting an offer from the purchaser to purchase, seller will disclose all changes to the purchaser prior to accepting the offer.
I think it says that on the top of ours in that little
Yeah.
box. It has like the law, and I think it says something related to that, so.
But that's all before they
before an offer is accepted.
And we're in Jersey, so it's during the due diligence of that before the, that period of that certain amount of days.
So once a seller gets a purchase offer or the contract in and they sign it, then that's when it would be prior to that signing of the contract. Are you guys all okay with this? Okay, so the seller's going to sign and the listing agent's going to sign. And naturally, when you do have an offer on the property, the purchaser is signing the same form. And the buyer's agents. It goes on, this is a 2-page form. And the buyer's agent would sign below. Questions? Okay. Okay, so Garden State MLS has coming soon. I'll go through Garden States. I think that's all of my state forms. Oh no, we'll do the property condition disclosure. This is also a state form. So this is very different than what we do in New York. We used to have forms like this, but we no longer use them in New York. Instead, we have a property condition disclosure statement that we just have our sellers sign stating the law. This is actually a form for the sellers to fill out, giving information on their home. It's a very in-depth form. There are areas where they could put unknown checkbox if they don't know, but there's lots of questions that go with this, with each little subject matter that they can fill out. So it is in detail. It does definitely get detailed here. The seller would fill this out and sign it at the end of the form. And this, once you put a listing up, this typically gets uploaded into the documents section of the listing, so that when a buyer is going to make an offer on a property, they have access to this form and can review it before they actually make an offer. And on the buy side, I know we're talking about listings, but when you're making an offer on the buy side, you should always present this to your buyer before making an offer. And if you are making an offer, you should be sending the contract in, the lead paint form if it's applicable, and also the property condition disclosure if it is available. Sellers can sometimes choose not to fill this form out, even in New Jersey. They don't have to, but usually there'll be some a remark somewhere if
The
it's
box,
not,
yes or no, whether
Yeah.
you have it.
if they have it. So they can choose not to, but I see more times than not that they do fill them out. They're used to filling them out. You guys are not supposed to fill out this form, so we're just going to reiterate that as well. This is for the seller. You don't have knowledge of the property or what's been done or when it's been done. So you should not be putting a pencil mark to any of these questions except to sign. Are we signing at the end? Hang on. The seller just signs. So we are not signing this at all. Seller's real estate broker, we are signing. Okay. So it's just an acknowledgement that we presented this and that's all we're doing. So they should actually be filling this out on their own. If they need help reading it, I mean, you could help them read the form, but they should really be filling this out on their own.
I had a situation with another agent. The people were old, they're not good on the computer and so on. So she filled it out and then had them initial anything that she checked. It's always a good idea if you do it to have them initial it, so at least makes them acknowledge it.
Okay, can you guys all hear that? Yes, okay.
Yes.
I'm taking your silence as a yes. Okay, we're going to save and close. Thanks, Carol. Okay, so, all right, so we'll start with Garden State MLS. Garden State MLS has a coming soon. New Jersey MLS does not have a coming soon. They have a delayed showing option gonna go to Garden State MLS. Okay, so this is the coming soon. Oh, so this is their delayed showing. They use a coming soon as a delayed showing. So again, it's going to be the office name, your name as the listing agent, the address of the property, and the first showing date. Seller and the listing broker agree that there will be no showings of the property to prospective purchasers, nor any real estate agent previews and/or caravans prior to the first showing date. Okay, so it's the same as in New York. You cannot, if it's a coming soon or a delayed showing, it's not to be shown to anyone. This prohibition against showings, previews, and/or caravan applies to the listing broker, all agents in the listing broker's office, and all other brokers and agents affiliated with the listing company, as well as brokers and agents from offices not affiliated with the listing company. There are no exceptions to the prohibition against showings before the first showing date. The seller can revise the showing date at any time by providing the listing broker's office with a written request specifying a new showing date. Upon receipt of the request, the listing broker must immediately submit the change to the MLS. The initial prohibition showing period for any extensions of the prohibited showing period may not exceed 10 days. So they're not saying what the initial, the extension of the I don't know what the initial time
I
frame.
think it said 10 days, didn't it say that?
That's an extension.
Yeah, of starting a delay.
So you think it's just the 10 days? Okay. I'll find out. I'll make sure and I
Yeah,
will.
the initial period and any extension may not exceed 10 days.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so it's 10 days, not 2 weeks like we have in New York. So it's a little bit shorter time period. Seller signs the form. You're going to sign the form.
And is that the same? There's a coming soon status in the MLS?
In Garden, I think they do delayed showing. It's yeah, different.
You know, it's interesting in the sheet, do you want me to mention?
Sure.
In the sheets, when they come out in the morning, they'll have an active status, because I just did this.
Yeah.
And then they have when it's available for show right next to it,
Yeah,
kind of thing. So it tells you right away that it's active, but not
available to show.
Right.
Yeah,
So I don't know what they do in that, but in Burt and the other one.
in New Jersey
Right.
MLS. Yeah, it's really it's just
I
confusing.
think, I mean, in this market, who wants to use coming soon? It's just like people are killing each other outside the house waiting for it to.
It's the same in New Jersey.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's dangerous
So-
to do coming soon.
They're very, very strict, all of these MLS offices, very strict.
Yep. Okay, so this is the Garden State MLS Listing Commission Agreement. Okay, guys, so again, Garden State MLS, we're going to put in the seller landlord's name, the owner's address, their telephone number, the email address. So you don't have to, sometimes they take this information, you don't have, I guess here you should be putting the owner's address, it's not going anywhere. But in MLS, when you're actually uploading the form, you don't have to put the seller's phone number in. It always asks for it, but you don't have to put it in. You could put your number in place of it. It could be that the seller lives at a different address than the actual property, so they ask for the owner's address as well as the property address. On this side here, you're going to put in the listing broker's name, our address, our phone number, fax number. It's funny, they still have that there. The initial sale price or whether it's a rental. The term of the agreement, when it starts, when it expires. Same as our forms, just in a different location. Disclosure of business relationships. So you're stating that in this case, it's going to be me. I'm Karen Ciccone, Keller Williams. I am acting as a seller's agent and disclosed dual agency. So this is the middle one is always the one that you should be checking. You never know if you're going to end up in dual agency situations. Offer of cooperation. So this is just set up a little bit differently than ours. Subagents, we're always saying no to. Buyer's agents, we're always saying yes to. Transaction brokers, I would say you're saying no to in this case, because usually they are on the listing side. I don't really see why there would be a transaction broker on a buyer side. The rental portion, in this case, we're not going to pay attention to, but if we were, it would be the same thing. Subagents would be a no, tenants broker would be a yes, and transaction agents would be no. Commission shall be as follows. The sale commission would go here, and the rent, that's a rental commission. So don't forget, this is the total commission here that you would be putting in, the same as on our form. When you're talking about the commission for the buyer's side, there's always minus 275. This is a thing that New Jersey adopted. It could be our office has adopted a minus 275, but you will see when you make buyer offers out there, it could be minus 300, minus 150. It could be any number. They use all kinds of crazy numbers. When you're making your bills up, make sure that when you send your bill in, that on the list side, it's whatever, 3%, 2%, 5%, whatever it is that you agree upon. And then on the buy side, always make sure that you remember to subtract that 275 and add it onto the sell side. It's not that it just gets lost in transaction, but it gets added onto the sell side. So that creates a little bit of a problem, Lori, when you're doing commissions and commands.
I have nothing really to do with that. I don't, we could ask the NCAs how they want to handle that.
I think you have to do it. I think they have to calculate it out and
Right.
just
Oh,
put
just
in.
Yeah, so put the raw number in. And
Right.
The percentage is like 2.7894% or something.
Right.
Yeah, I get that.
So, and guys, if you have a problem with it, whether you're on the list side or the sell side, because it's going to affect both sides when you're doing your commissions and commands, you may have to talk to Lisa or Stacy about it and how.
I
to handle it.
understand that they're working on a flat fee box.
Which would
in the-
make life so much
yeah,
easier.
I don't know when that might happen, but then you could just put the flat fee in, so.
So if you guys have a problem, you know, either reach
Call
out to me
NCA, yeah.
or Stacy and Lisa, and we'll help you get it resolved.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing on. So then it goes on to number 7 with the actual splits, how the full commission that we mentioned up here, how it is going to be split. I actually skipped number 6, which said, are we going to have a key box? So remember, guys, every MLS in New Jersey has their own key box. It's not like New York that you could put the same box everywhere. So New Jersey MLS has their own key box. Garden State MLS has their own key box. They expect you, if you are putting a listing in either one of these MLSs, to have boxes for that MLS. So if you're putting a listing, let's say in both the MLSs, you should have 2 key boxes in an ideal situation. You can use combo boxes, which would just alleviate that little problem, but then you're not getting all the data that you need. You don't know when agents are going in and coming out. You could have potential problems with people going back without you knowing. You know, you have no way to keep tabs on what's happening. So you need to have the seller's permission for that, and you need to make sure they're okay with it if you do use a combo lockbox. So here is where the commission that would go out to the buyer's agent would be put. So you can see they very clearly have the commission amount, whether it's, we're just going to say 2% minus your 275 would go here. It's just the way they do business. Again, the listing agent would sign. They want to know your ID numbers. They're very big on license numbers, ID numbers in New Jersey. They want all that information up front, and also for the broker. So they want the firm name and also the broker ID number. So these ID numbers are not necessarily license numbers. Those are the ID numbers in the actual MLS. So, you know, when you sign on to Garden State MLS, you put your ID number in. That's what they're looking for here. If you don't know it, you can go in and you can go to the roster and just pull up your name, and it'll give you the office ID number and your ID number as well. Okay. So that's tenant information. We're not going to go there. This just goes through the rest. I'm not going to read all this because we'll never be done if we do all this, but you guys should be reading these forms so that you know, in case you have to explain to your sellers what they actually mean. So please read the forms. We can have another day of just Q&A. So if you guys do read these forms, not if you do, but you will, and when you read these forms and you have questions, please jot them down, and then we can have maybe one session with just Q&A and we can answer your questions.
Let's just ask a question in the chat about where you get the Garden State lock boxes. Since you just put up
So
on the
lock
site.
boxes have to be bought through the brokerage. So I actually have to make the requests for the lock boxes. You guys just can't get them. So if you want Garden State lock boxes, let me know and we'll put it in order. Just like we did with New Jersey boxes. Okay, so that is Garden State MLS. Now we're going to go through the New Jersey MLS forms. And when you're putting your listings in, it actually tells you whether you have to upload and what you have to upload to the MLS. New Jersey MLS doesn't require you to put your listing, upload your listing forms. If they want to see them, if there's an agent complaining that you, or perhaps thinking that you don't actually have the listing or signed documentation, if they ask you to see it, you have 24 hours to produce it with signatures on it. So it should be very easy for you to do because you would have immediately put them into your opportunity,
Correct.
right? It's simple.
Especially me, I do right in.
A plug for Lori. Okay, so this is the addendum to the listing agreement. This talks about, so this is the second form. I skipped to the second form. This is where I'm going to go out of it. This talks about the commission end of it, but let's do the actual listing form first. New Jersey, here we go. This is my favorite form in the whole world. It's
Yeah.
so small, I can't see
Yeah.
a single thing. Okay. So this form asks for a lot of information, kind of like the input to the actual listing form. So it's good you have everything here. And once you're putting your information into the MLS, it's kind of all right in front of you. So they're asking for the county, the town, the block and lot number of the property. The MLS number, you don't get that till you actually put it in. I just want to see what this said here. It's optional because you don't have it. It's not like our MLS that once you put something in and save it as incomplete, it gives you an MLS number. This, you don't get your MLS number until you actually submit it. You put your street information in, your price, your initial sale price, directions. It's not a mandatory field, so you don't have to worry about it. The listing date, expiration date, the owner of the property. I just use me as the owner, property owner address, phone number, the listing broker ID. Again, this ID is not the license number. It's the listing broker's ID in the MLS. And then they want also the listing sale person's ID. And if there's a co-listing agent, they want theirs as well. They're asking right up front for your agency disclosure on here too. So you would be a seller's agent. They don't talk about the dual agency because we have the other form. I don't know why they don't ask that here, but they want to know who you're compensating. So it would be buyer's agent. We would not be compensating transaction agents, sub-agents. This is really important for you guys to know. They're asking if you have a dual commission arrangement. So that means, you know, when you go on a listing appointment and sometimes you would say to a seller in certain circumstances that there's a high I think this is going to sell very quickly and I think I'm going to sell it myself. If I do sell it myself, instead of commission of XYZ, if I bring in a buyer and I have both sides of the deal, I will give you a little bit of a discounted rate. So you have to disclose this. Even in New York, we're supposed to disclose whether we give a discount.
It doesn't apply in New York.
No?
No, it's in the Code of Ethics, and that is, in New York, is exempt from that disclosure.
Okay, so I stand corrected. In New Jersey,
In New Jersey,
you
all the
have-
other states, I think we're the only exempt state. I don't know. what
Really?
the story is.
I mean, it comes up when you're discussing it. Usually.
well, that's why they want to know if it's your own sale, because they
It's just- In New
assuming,
York, there is nothing on the form, but in New Jersey, yes.
for sure. So that's what that means. It's a little ambiguous. Sometimes a lot of people don't know what that means, but that's what they're asking there. They're asking if this is an exclusive agency. Otherwise, they're assuming it's an exclusive right.
If you're doing two jobs, don't be afraid to take both sides.
There you go.
But, you want to give a little discount, cool, but doing two jobs,
Sometimes it's harder.
yeah.
Okay, so they're asking again for the rooms. So this is information that you need when you're filling out your form anyway. So you would fill all of this out, whether they're solar, lot size, taxes.
Karen, it's Carol again. I have a quick question. On that
Sure.
dual commission arrangement, are we
Yep,
just stating yes or no?
yes,
Okay, all right, thank you.
yes.
Okay.
So you may get somebody, if they did see that on the listing and somebody was making an offer, they could call you and ask you.
Mhm.
It doesn't say you have to tell them what the exact amount is, but
I think in the Code of Ethics, I believe it says you have to disclose the differential if you're in like a dual agency situation.
So the percentage.
Competing offer
Mhm.
situation, if you have an offer in the hat, you have to disclose that you have a dual commission situation with a differential of 1%, say.
or a 0.5% or
Yeah,
whatever
so
it
whatever
is.
it is, so that your competitors know that they're gonna have to be 1% better to match your offer. So that's the
It's
idea
interesting.
behind that.
So what you're saying is, let's say there's two offers. It's my listing and I have a dual agent buyer as well.
Yeah, you have the
And
buyer,
you,
and I put in an offer.
you're a Coldwell Banker, okay? So I have to tell my seller that can I then negotiate with her, saying, we have a better buyer on my side, and in addition, I'll be happy to discount, and you'll let me do that?
You can always negotiate commission always. but
Right.
You have to disclose the differential to the competing offers so that they. can
But we're
make
talking about
up.
just in New Jersey, not in New York.
Yeah,
This is only New
So if
Jersey.
you have the offer, I have to say to you, we have another offer and it has to be mine.
I have an offer on the table and there's a differential of 0.5%.
Really?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's at level playing field, right?
Yep.
It's all gonna go away, so don't worry about it.
There'll be a new
It's gonna get
class
worse
coming
people.
soon.
Sorry.
Okay, anyway, so again, asking what school district, what rooms are on each floor, getting you prepared to fill in the form. Showing instructions, customer remarks would go on here as well.
And then the seller signs this, right?
Seller signs this, yes. So this is more like this part of it is more like our listing form. So
Yeah.
it's asking for the start date, the expiration date, a possession date. So they're a little bit, they want to know more or less right up front when the seller is thinking of actually moving. Here, this is the compensation field. So this is the total commission goes here. It's not broken out yet as to who's getting what. The seller then signs. Again, here you're checking off what you are, and it should be seller's agent with dual agency. This is kind of like ours too. So this is that same field that same little area that we have in our New York listing, that if a listing were to expire without being sold, there is a period of time after the expiration. If a buyer were to come back and to make an offer on the property, you would still be due a commission unless the seller Yeah, unless the seller relists the property and that becomes then null and void.
And we have been really being sticklers about that, because I talked to Kristen, she's had to defend a couple people after the fact.
Yep.
There's something has to be in that box, so if you are okay with a 0 or an NA, please put that in the box, don't just leave it blank. Because then it becomes very, very gray
Why
area
would you
when
put a
she's.
0 there? Why wouldn't?
Some people don't care, they're like, I'm just gonna sell it anyway, I'm not gonna worry about it, but we've had a few people, then it's expired, someone else has come back, or a buyer's come, knocked on the door.
This environment is
and-
not gonna last forever.
This will protect you in that
Yeah.
situation, and we, with this signed document with a number there, we have a right to claim a commission. But if there's nothing in there, it's very difficult to help agents collect their money, so. And if you intend to not enforce that, then put a 0 or an NA as opposed to leaving it blank.
Okay. This next little section here talks about having your information going out to a website and your address appearing. So you would leave these unchecked. If you check it, they will not be put out to the world. Sales associate is going to sign, broker manager to sign this listing agreement. So New Jersey is very big on that as well, the broker signing. You put the owner name in, the owner signs, the owner phone number. We go down to the next page, which talks about fair housing. So it's similar to our fair housing form that we have in New York files. So this all talks about fair housing, these next couple of pages. And it is signed by the broker salesperson. This is the addendum to the listing agreement. We put all these forms together. So this is where the commission actually gets split up between the selling agent and the buyer agent. So again, you put the MLS number you're not going to have yet, the property address, the town. This is where the split would go for the buyer's agent. So again, it would be 2%, 3%, whatever it is, minus 275, whatever you agree upon. And everybody signs in the appropriate places. Remember, for broker manager signatures, the easiest way to get that done is to send it to rpbrokersignature.com. Send it in at gmail.com. I always do that at yeah. Yeah, it's at gmail.com.
So the 275, that comes from the buyer?
Yes, the buyer's agent. So they get
So this-
$275 less. Whatever their split is, they
Oh,
get,
it's a minus?
it's for a buyer's agent, it's a minus 275. For the listing agent, it's a plus $275.
So, but it gets on top of the 2%.
Or whatever,
No, I mean, right,
whatever the
whatever
commission
your
is.
commission is, right.
Just for the RP broker signature, please make sure there's a box, like an electronic signature box. I get a lot of them that go, oh, can you sign, but there's no box. And this is a nice small group, so I'll make this announcement. I can sign documents right in command now. So if you shoot me an email and say, hey, I just uploaded the listing agreement, can you sign it? I can go in there and sign it. It's very
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
This form is for New Jersey. The one in Garden State doesn't do that with the
The minus 2 cents, yes, it
Yeah.
does. It's a
Oh,
New
New
Jersey
Jersey
statewide
because
thing.
they charge for the listing fee, so to
Correct.
speak. Okay.
Yep.
Good thing I'm not doing Hawaii because I'm like.
It's odd too, that the buyer's agent would pay the listing fee, right?
Right.
You're like, what? That's
It's
your
odd.
listing, you pay the fee.
Right,
Yeah.
it's an odd thing. I think we're done. That page we did, the commission split, so this is just a repeat, it's already included in the listing forms. Oh, so they have a worksheet, so New Jersey MLS, and it is in the packet, has a worksheet, which if you're unfamiliar, it's a good thing to fill out.
I keep talking, the best thing about this sheet is when you're inputting unlike the one we used to have, it actually goes
Follows.
exactly
Yep.
what your question is they're asking, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, so this is very, very helpful. There's a lot of information on here that they ask you to fill out. It's not a required form, but it's here for you. So there's a couple things that I'm just gonna say to you guys with listings in New Jersey. So New Jersey is, there are a lot of homes that are way older. So there is a potential for oil tanks to be present. There are potentials for different types of sewer systems. It's much more prevalent to have septic systems. They have even other systems, which are pretty rare, but the point to point, and I forget what the other one is called. Cesspool, yes, cesspool.
Where the cesspool.
Those should not come up very often, but they could come up. But so you guys need to be aware. If you're dealing with an older home, you should always suggest to your buyers, this is on the buy side, even your seller, ask them if they had an oil tank at one time. Did they have the oil tank removed? Was it removed with the C of O, with the appropriate?
EPA designation.
Yes, thank you. Taking care of it. So New Jersey can be a little bit funkier with some of their things. On a buyer side, everything that's out of the norm, that when you're doing a contract, oh my goodness, my head went blank. There are addendums to the contract. So for instance, if the buyer has an FHA loan, there's an addendum, because the listing agent will expect to get these addendums with the contract when you're making the offer. So there's addendums is, actually I'm gonna check, I'll go on and show you the addendums.
Make you want to try.
What happened?
Seeing it.
LOL, Tiana.
I know.
Among other things.
Among other, yeah, Jersey's a little kooky. I love her. We miss you. I haven't talked to you. Where am I gonna go? I'm gonna go out of this. I'm gonna go add into DocuSign. I'm gonna go into the New Jersey buyer. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because the seller expects to get this. The seller's agent expects to get these when an offer comes in. Okay, so there's an addendum for a property sale contingency. So if a buyer has a property that they need to sell before they can buy, there's an addendum that needs to be attached. Private sewage disposal, private well, solar panels, swimming pools, underground fuel tanks,
These aren't even all of them. Remember, we
oh my
handpicked the
God,
most-
we did.
most
The most
likely to be used, but there's a whole slew of others.
Yeah, so if you guys scroll down here
The jar library.
Yep. and you go into the Najar library,
That's all the forms.
yeah, there's a ton of forms in here. So if you have a condition that seems to be a little bit unique, you may want to just look through this library and see if there's an addendum that you need to include. Okay. Do we have any questions?
I have a question. It's more of a legal question when you have a buyer or you're the listing agent. If you have someone who has made an offer, you send the contract in, you've made the offer, you're waiting to hear back, and your offer is accepted, and your buyer turns around now after they've signed this, 90-page, form, and they say, I don't really want this house. I know I put the offer in. I know we filled out this stuff. I signed, I initialed, but now I don't want this house. What happens?
So, when we had our class with Lisa,
Yes.
she had said to us that there is a 3-day time period. So buyer and seller accept the offer. Everybody's happy. They sign the contract, right? You have 3 days to get that to the attorneys. I think it should be immediately, as soon as you get this signed. If you can get it out that day, I would get it to the attorneys, because the attorneys are the ones who are supposed to cancel these contracts. If you let it go and don't do anything about it, it could create a huge problem.
So and I know that's attorney review period. So during those 3 days, the buyer can renege for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, yep,
It's like a lemon law, right?
yeah,
Okay.
Changed my mind.
yep.
So it's a day later. And because sometimes this 3 days typically goes on much
This is-
longer.
So this is actually getting the contract over to the attorneys.
Oh,
Get
okay.
the contract to the attorneys immediately. This way they deal.
They can delay it all they want.
They can do whatever they want. They can cancel the contracts. They can do anything. So my best practices for you all is as soon as you get that signed contract back by buyer and seller, get it to the attorneys.
Okay, so then, like Carol said, if they renege or want to pull back, then you just put it in writing to the same 2 lawyers and be done with it.
And let them handle it.
Correct.
Yes,
Please note, my buyer has
right.
chosen to blah, blah, blah.
Right. Not like here where they just don't answer, they just go away, they just, nobody says anything, right? You're calling, there's no answer. Yeah, no, in New Jersey, it's more formal. So
Okay,
remember
so
that,
what
you
was that?
guys.
As long as that attorney, what do they call? They reject the contract or whatever to the
Right.
other attorney, you're in good shape. Okay.
Yep.
Well, call, I would put something in writing.
Yeah, I would put it in writing
Never
too,
call.
Carol.
Right, right. You know, I would say to the attorney, you know, my buyer has chosen not to continue with this transaction. Please notify the other attorney and
And
then,
you should CC your
Yeah.
buyers
Right.
on those emails so that it's not coming from you because it's not you who's purchasing the house, it's your buyers.
right. And I guess maybe, you know, even say, please acknowledge receipt of this email that, you know, they know, or follow up with a phone call or something. So you're not just left,
Yep.
you know, hanging out there. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it just came up, it came up with a buyer of mine. He wanted to make, you know, 2 offers on 2 properties. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, you know, I guess we can do it. You know, it's like a crazy market. You're just trying to hedge your bets as best you can,
Well,
but
because you're gonna have to notify MLS also, because next to your A is gonna be that little star, and that star has to come off if it's not.
right.
Correct, so the
Yeah.
listing agent has to
Right.
put it back to active.
Right.
Yep, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That just, you know, I just wanted to clarify because I was like,
You're
you
doing
know.
very good. You're my star people. All right, guys, you all okay?
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
When are you doing the other thing? Is what I'm thinking.
Okay, we can end.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, you all. Have a good day.
Bye, guys.